Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Hogarth's Financial Astrology. All right, brace yourselves. Yeah, brace yourselves. Especially if you are a viewer who is based in America. Yeah, based in America. I've got some important updates to share. I mean, these are happening globally, and it's just you know a massive story has just broken, particularly in the global news and also as well in terms of the financial cycles, yeah, of planet Earth, trade agreements, and all of this stuff. And the reason why I'm saying brace yourselves is because, guys, it's happening. Yeah, it is happening. So just to give a context, for those of you who've watched my Hogarth's Global Astrology, you will already know this actually, and I think I've mentioned it here on this channel a little bit, and I think I did on my last financial video. And thanks to all of those that tuned in. Well, I've got another update, and this is very, very significant because the pace of change that is happening in the global markets, trade deals, banking, all things financial is happening at breakneck speed. A lot of the things that have matured just recently have been decades in the making, years. But nonetheless, they are coming to fruition now. And it's all starting to happen. It's all starting to happen. So you guys may remember, I actually made some videos, and I'll probably I'll drop them in the at the end credits of this video. I'll drop them in the end credits of this video. Probably should have lined up some of those clips, but I've lined up other clips instead. But anyway, I think it was around about this time last year, or maybe it was February, March of 2025. I can't quite remember. It's a while ago now. And I compared the charts of the USA and the EU. And you guys will probably remember I said the EU is going to rise. Its fortunes are going to change, yeah, for the better. And then I also looked at the charts of the United States, and I said, financially, this is probably going to be quite difficult for the US, yeah, just because of just where the USA is right now in its cycle, and all of the absolute cray-cray that we've been seeing unfold. And I know I'm preaching to the choir of this, and many of you that watch my channel, broadly speaking, are mainly sort of Democrat or independent. And who knows, some of you may support other parties. I don't know. You never know who's watching. However, things are getting extremely consequential now. Yeah, extremely consequential. And as the proverb says, certain chickens are coming home to roost. You probably heard me say it before, but I have to say it again, so everyone is absolutely crystal clear, like what I said about with the timing. And many of you will know that the USA, in terms of it as a country, as its chart, is going through a Rahu Dasha right now. Now, the Rahu Dasha lasts for 18 years, yeah, in total. So here, I've shown this before. This is a photocopy of one of my illustrations from my book, which you guys will know. Let me just grab it here. Yeah, I bookmarked the pages here. And of course, this is called The Candid Guide to Neo-Vedic Astrology. So of course, you're welcome to kind of dive in and get that. And it's not just about finances. It's about, I teach the concept that planets are people, and I talk about the planets, all of them, and I talk about dasha sequences as well. And one of the illustrations that I'm going to show you here is actually in this book. Now, obviously, you can see this is a sheet of A4. So in the book, it's much smaller. But the illustrations of that book are available from my website my website as well. So if you just I've always got my website linked in the video description below. Just go to my website and you can find the illustrations, consultations, the whole shebang. But the important thing is this. In Vedic astrology, there is a thing which is called the Vimsatori Mahadasha sequence. Now that might sound, that's a lot to process. But in essence, what it describes is when a certain planet has a dominant influence on a person's chart or a nation's chart. When I'm reading my client's charts, I, along with all the other transits, their natal chart, what's going on, I look at their Dasha sequence, because the Dasha sequence will show what is being emphasized in that person's life. So what do I mean by that? So here, in Vedic astrology, they look at 9 factors, 9 planets. Of course, I am a neo-Vedic astrologer. So in traditional Vedic astrology, they look at Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn. Those are known as the 7 grahas, which means to grip. We're all under the grip of the planets. In that, you also have Rahu and Ketu, who are the north and south node of the moon. 9 planets. We know that the sun is a star. We know that the moon is a satellite, but they all get called planets in astrology. Anyway, why is this important? What makes me a neo-Vedic astrologer is that I include the outer planets. So I include Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, Ceres, and Chiron. Why? Because they're too important to leave out. They are the secret sauce. They are the unusual gifts or talents, or they're the weirdo stuff that can happen to us as well. They're very piquant in flavor, and they can be quite extreme in nature in terms of their gifts as well as their blights. Yeah. So knowing the outer planets is a very important thing, particularly that America is going through its Pluto return right now. And in the Pluto return, which happens, it starts every 248 years, but sort of peaks at around about 250 years. Yeah. America, as you guys will know, is going to be 250 years old on the 4th of July of this year. So this is a absolutely critical time. Pluto is the planet of breakdown and reconstitution, shall we say. It's the phoenix rising from the ashes. And every country, assuming it gets old enough, goes through this cycle. The older the country, the more cycles. If you think of nations like Britain, for example, or the UK, I mean, we weren't known as Britain until 1707. But however, London, for example, is a Roman city. Yeah, Londinium. That's where we get the name London from. So the UK has been an international place for over 2,000 years. Yeah, with the Roman Empire. So as a nation, we've been through many Pluto returns. Westminster Abbey, for example, is over 1,000 years old. So when you roughly divide that into 250 years, that means from the time of the building of Westminster Abbey, the UK has been through at least 4 Pluto returns. Yeah? But then there's the time before that. If you think about a place like China, for example, which has over 5,000 years of contiguous history, continual history, they've had even more. This is America's first. And this is important because the transformations that are coming, no living American on Earth and no living human being on Earth has ever seen before. Except the last time that an empire came to end. And the most recent one, of course, was the British Empire, where the wheels really came off in the 1950s. Yeah, but it started from the 1930s, but it was the 1950s. Of course, the UK was at the peak of the Industrial Revolution and pioneered so many things, and in many ways laid the groundwork for modern banking, finance, infrastructure, and so many things. Yeah, obviously, each empire has always contributed something to the collective, good, bad, or ugly, something. So now we're looking at the American Empire. And although it's been a bit of an unconventional empire, in many ways it does tick all the boxes. And one of the main ones, of course, is the military. Yeah, over 700 international US bases around the world. There has been tremendous economic might, military might, which of course is famous, and of course, cultural influence, which has been vast. Arts, entertainment, movies, films, food. Sometimes a bit more on the negative side with the food. Yeah, I think junk food probably hasn't done the world that much good, but the influence of the United States in terms of the rest of the world and popular culture in particular has been, I would say, gargantuan. It's been huge, huge. There's very few people on planet Earth who have not seen an American movie or sitcom. Yeah, we know this. Oh gosh, my phone is beeping away. So, of course, America's impact has been significant, particularly in the global world order, and particularly after the Second World War, which is where America really rose to prominence and power. Yeah, it was the manufacturing center of the world, had the largest gold reserves at one point, and everyone was doing well. And in many ways, what the mantra of "Make America Great Again" is very much talking about when a certain Duc Larange was in his boyhood in the 1950s and 60s when it was going good. Yeah, I think things really started setting around Watergate and Vietnam and all of this kind of stuff. But anyway, this isn't a history lesson. The important thing to understand is that the United States, because this is obviously Hogarth's financial astrology, is that the United States is entered a phase of great peril. And I don't want to, it to seem like hyperbole or a bit too dramatic or a bit over the top, but there's no other word to describe it. This is a time of great peril for the United States, mainly because of Duc Larange, I call it as my nickname for Trump, and his regime. And I'm not going to say administration because it is a regime. And the regime, along with Trump, has gone on to make a whole slew of catastrophic errors. And these are going to have grave, and are having grave consequences for the United States. And you guys will remember who've been watching my Hogarth Global Astrology for a while. And I remember when all of this stuff was going along. And I remember in the early days of the administration, which wasn't that long ago, we're only talking a year ago now. And I said, of all of the wrong-headed, misadventure, silly and hubristic things that Trump could do, I said the tariffs was the worst one. The tariffs, where he's tariffed the whole world. We've also seen these ambitions for imperialistic expansion and wanting to take over Greenland and all of the stuff. The deluge and the slop that is just coming out is almost too hard to keep up with. But let me tell you, those tariffs did incredible damage, along with all of the cray-cray. And the Greenland stuff was just a red line that should never have been crossed, which tells you that the people around Trump also as well are absolute muppets. And this is having deeply severe consequences for the United States. The important thing to understand is in this dasher sequence, this is decided which car you go into. For each car, I've ascribed to a certain planet. And each planet has its own flavor and its own way, its own vehicle, and its own way of driving. Yeah, it starts with K2, yeah, who have given a 1973 AMC Javelin. This is a 7-year dasher. Here I've got a Venus longest dasher, 20 years, Rolls Royce. The Sun, shortest dasher, 6 years, Bentley. Moon, 10-year dasher, Honda Accord. Mars, of course, war and sport. I have to give him a sports car, Porsche, 7 years. I'll skip this one because I'm going to come back to it. And then Jupiter, Winnebago, 16-year journey. Saturn, Black Mercedes, second longest, 19-year journey. Mercury, Mini Cooper, yeah, 17-year journey. And the one I skipped was Rahu. Now, why is this important? In traditional Vedic astrology, the dasha sequence that is most feared is Saturn, yeah, which they call Shani Dasha. And I can understand why, but you know what? It's not the worst dasha. And it depends how well your Saturn's placed. Yeah, you do have to work. It's hard work. It's effort. You have to put stuff in. But in the Saturn dasha, you find out who you truly are and who everyone else is. It's like a continuous succession of reality checks. The more that you are aligned with reality, the better you will do in the dasha. The more you are disassociated from reality, then yeah, it's not going to be very good. However, in my opinion, the Rahu dasha is probably one of the most dangerous of all, because it is said when a person, or in this case a country, is in a Rahu dasha, they do not heed good advice. They don't listen. Rahu, the shadow of Rahu, also deals with scammers, cheats, shortcuts. This is why Rahu is associated with politics. Deals with liars, cheats, yeah? Also can deal with narcissists and sociopaths, robbers and thieves of all kinds. That's the shadow of Rahu. Now, look, I don't want to badmouth Rahu. Rahu can be wonderful. So can Ketu as well, yeah? But it depends in how we're embracing their energy. Rahu always brings us something of the new. The Rahu dasha is a long one, yeah? It's the third longest, yeah? Venus is 20 years. Saturn is 19 years. Rahu is 18. And if you look here, you can see here, in this illustration, this photocopy, you can see how it's the only one I've illustrated with a driver in there. And you see this kind of ghoulish thing at the wheel, yeah? And you can see here, this is a rally car, yeah? Because Rahu is a wild ride. Let me just get the camera adjust. There we go. Rahu is a wild ride. One of the wildest that you can get. In a Rahu dasha, all bets are off, because it's like the journey goes off-road. And you've heard me say this before, but just in case you're new, guess which dasha the United States is in? You've guessed it, yeah? Rahu. So when a new dasha starts, the energy of that new dasha starts about 3 months before. What is remarkable is that the United States officially went into its Rahu dasha in around about September of 2015. And a few months before that, a certain person came down the golden escalator. Yeah. And then here we are. Yeah, here we are. And what I want to show you, I'm going to share my screen with you, and then we're just going to go in, so just so you can understand how some of this stuff works, yeah, what I've been talking about. And again, I know you guys know this stuff. Oops. Let's see here. So here you can see the US Constitution Declaration of Independence, yeah? So 4th of July, 1776, yeah, 6:30 p.m., Philadelphia, yeah, in Pennsylvania. This chart works very well. I've done all my US predictions of this and it has not failed. It's been absolutely bang on. In this chart, you will see that America has a Sagittarius rising. Yep, Sagittarius rising. The important thing I want you guys to focus on is this area over here. Now, what you'll see is Pluto is in the second house, retrograde in the USA chart. Whenever a planet is retrograde, it has more karma on it. This is what I've found. Yeah. Mercury, for example, goes retrograde 3 times a year, so it's not that surprising. Pluto is a slow-moving planet, so it's often retrograde for a lot of people. However, what it means is, it means there's more karma in it. So it means all the things connected with Pluto and all the things connecting with Mercury have more karma on them. They're more subconscious. Pluto is the most subconscious of all the subconscious planets. And Pluto deals with the id, yeah, the dark side, the underbelly. The positives of Pluto can deal with mea culpa, transformation, transcendence, all the different ologies, astrology, graphology, so, you know, psychology, all of that stuff. It's the Sigmund Freud, Jung, the counseling couch, yeah, all of this stuff, transformation, personal transformation, turning the lead into gold. However, we have to dig the hardest for Pluto to make the most out of Pluto because he's the most subconscious planet and he represents a lot of dark desires in the id. Pluto can also deal with what? Oligarchs. This is where we get the name plutocracy from. It deals with corruption, sexploitation of all kinds, slavery, murder, genocide, all of this kind of stuff. That is Pluto's energy. It just is. We all have Pluto somewhere, and every country has Pluto somewhere. So, you know, it's just how it is, yeah? We live here on planet Earth. But for the United States, this Pluto is retrograde, so therefore it's even more subconscious, and it's happening in the second house of wealth, money, finance, values, education, asset classes of all kinds. It's also here with Ketu, which I call snip snip. Ketu is the moksha karka, which means liberation from this world, can be very spiritual. But guess what? Ketu can also represent crazy people in their basements, serial killers, and people who do not listen to anything at all. Why? Because Ketu is the body of the dragon without the head. It's the head is where the ears are, where the eyes are, and where the mouth is. That's Rahu. Ketu can be like this, can be heedless. That's the shadow of Ketu. And I think that's why as well there's so many people that just go around and they just do heedless and headless acts without thinking. We only need to look at you know, Renee Good, yeah, and what's his name, Pretty, Alex Pretty. And not just them, they're not the only ones that have been gunned down in public. You know, the ICE raids and all of that stuff. And of course, many marginalized communities, including Black and Latin communities, and anyone who's not been part of the established, shall we say, norms or the accepted faces of America. And things are changing rapidly. So you can see this here, yeah? This can also be the ICE agents rummaging around, the crazy people in their basements, the school shootings and all of this kind of stuff. Now, look, I don't want this just to be a giant USA bash, but it is important to share with you the energy that is unfolding and why this is so significant, because this is very, very karmic. You'll see down here, this is transits. This is where the planets are right now. Right now, you'll see Pluto is currently going direct at 9 degrees 20 minutes. Mars is actually right on top. Pluto can be considered either the higher or the lower octave of Mars. I think it's more like the lower octave of Mars. And Mars can deal with aggression, warfare. Yeah. Has a lot to do with guns and firearms and weapons and all that stuff. Yeah. What are ICE doing? Yeah, so you can see this big stellium here, which happened on the new moon. But this also talks about the corporate world. It talks about government, finance. Capricorn is ruled by Saturn. Saturn is a planet of governments, finance. So it's a very corporate sign. It's a very government sign, deals with institutions, rules, regulations, tax, treaties, these kind of things. Yeah, anything connected with business. And this new moon, which was just here a few days ago, the moon is currently in sidereal Taurus right now, exalted. But when we go back to the 18th of January, today is the 27th of January 2026, and it's currently 9:58 p.m. When we go back to that, that's when a lot of this action was happening. And this means there were going to be lots of changes, particularly in the United States, in terms of the values, asset classes of all kinds. And of course, it also talks about money. So we've seen all of this stuff blowing up with ICE and Minnesota. But it means there's going to be big financial changes on the world stage, which have been activated. Where have I gone? What's happened here? Sorry if I vanished for a little while. So that gives you the idea. So at the moment, America is in the Rahu Dasha. Yeah, Rahu Dasha. And soon Ketu is going to start driving the car. Rahu I call gobble gobble. Ketu I call snip snip. This will officially begin on the 26th of March 2026. So we don't have that long. But those of you who watch my channel, I said the energy kicks in about 3 months before. I said, guys, this is going to be starting from November. Yeah. So I've got some important things to share with you because there's a lot of things that are changing. This energy is building. The Rahu Ketu axis is happening in the 2-8 axis. Second house, I've told you what that is. Where's Rahu with Mercury? Rahu's in the 8th house, and that deals with the economy. Other people's money. That's where gobble gobble is, yeah? Rahu deals with what? Greed, liars, cheats. Look at the cost of living. Look at the absolute piss take that these corporations are taking with just the cost of absolutely everything in the United States. Now, don't get me wrong, corporations around the world are all taking too much. But in America, it's just ridiculous. I see videos all the time of people struggling with what? The cost of living. You know, food prices going up, the food inflation, medical bills, insurance, even secondhand cars, housing, you know, everything through the roof. Why? Because there's so much corporate greed, yeah? Rahu. However, the stock market has kept on going up, 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 and up, and up, and up, and up. But not forever, guys. Nothing goes up forever. And there's a massive bubble. In the USA chart, Mercury is in the 8th house. And Mercury deals with the media. And that can also show as well corruption in the media, which hasn't been that obvious till now, but it's starting to become very obvious, isn't it? Because there's been all of these stories saying washing what is going on, or, you know, you got places like Fox and this, that, and the other, but Newsmax, but CNN is starting to, you know, go that way as well, where basically everything is being washed and the American public are not being given the truth, not the objective truth. No media is perfect, but the levels of gaslighting and lying now is just astonishing. And this is why a lot of people do not even watch any legacy media anymore, because it's too unreliable. Yeah, you can rely on them maybe to report the gas prices, but in terms of important stuff, and particularly when it comes to the regime where Trump has been getting all of his friends to buy out large sections of the media, you can't trust it. Look what's happening with TikTok. Yeah, they say TikTok is going to be dying off soon because it went from Chinese ownership. Do you remember all of the stuff of like, oh, China's stealing everyone's information? Guess what's happened since what is he called? Larry. I can't remember what is it called. Larry Ellison. I think he's taking it over, and I think he's just one of my clients today told me he's closing down the lion zoo or something like that in Florida, kicking out all the tenants and the animals who all have to leave by March. And then they say he might even put a data center there. Can't make this stuff up. Anyway, so what does this mean? It means when K2 starts driving the car, that connection between Rahu and K2 becomes even more activated. The houses that those planets are in become activated. Now, Rahu and K2, they don't rule signs, but they do rule nakshatras. So if we just go back here, though, just so you can see where this is happening. So just go share screen again. Entire screen. We'll just go back right here. Rahu and Ketu are in the 2-8 axis, which is going to talk about money and stock market. Remember, I've been talking about this AI bubble. Rahu actually represents AI along with Uranus, yeah? And he deals with extremes. Here he is in the 8th house. Gobble, gobble is here. So you've got all of that, AI inflation going on. And it's there with Mercury, and the media is being shifty, not talking about it, yeah? Kind of gaslighting, misinforming people. So the average person doesn't know what is going on, or they're just believing in the wrong things when the juggernaut is coming down the road. You can see here when we go, let's get this here. So you can see 24th of September 2015 is when the Rahu Dasha started. And it's going to end on the 24th of September 2033. It doesn't mean it's all going to be chaos and bedlam for that long, but it is a long dasher, yeah? It's 18 years. America's about the halfway point. So on the 26th of March 2026, when America is 249 years and 8 months, it's saying here, that is when K2 starts driving the car. K2, sadly, is a planet is associated with losses. Pluto deals with the extremes of either wealth, people that are so rich that their money cannot be counted, or the plutocracy or the oligarchy. And it also deals with extremities of debt. America is now over $38 trillion in debt. So this is activating now, but officially it'll be on the 26th. So that means anything leading up a few weeks before, or a few months before, or even a few months after. So bear that in mind, yeah? So if I stop the share, and I'm going to share my screen with you for some other things that you guys need to see. So let's hear. We're going to see some of my watch history, because I wanted to line up some clips, but if we just do here, if I just do this share. All right, you're going to see some of this stuff here. The important thing is to look at this. So just from these headlines, which I've already watched, Japan shock, 7 trillion bond market meltdown, and the beginning of yen, the carryover thing is called, what is it called? It is called the reverse carry trade. Yeah, going to talk a little bit about that. So why is this important? Because Japan, as a country, as a single country, holds the most US Treasury bond debt. Japan's own bonds are going through issues. So that means they may have to sell the dollar, sacrifice the dollar to basically save themselves. Yeah. But what I want to show you, one second, if I just go back, I need to make sure that, let me make sure that on that sharing tab that they, one second, let me just make sure that yes, the sound is on. All right. I'm just going to play you a little bit, and we've got iHip News, of course. Right. Let's look at this. You need to see this. Now, bear in mind that the EU on the 17th of January 2026 signed a massive deal. In fact, let's do that first. Let's look at that first. Hopefully you can see this. All right. On January 17th, 2026, the European Union, and let me just make sure that is actually, Go to screen, make sure that is. Oh, no, it's still showing the old one. 1 minute. Let's just do that 1 second. We're showing the old. You got to do it individually on this. First one is this. Just to give you some context, because of course this is Hogarth's financial astrology. This is how the rest of the world is responding. Now, the new moon happened on the 18th, and I said in a video a couple of weeks ago, I said this could have some financial impact on the United States because the new moon was happening in the second house, which deals with money, money, finances. And it was activating that Pluto and snip. Look at this. On January 17th, 2026, the European Union and the Mercosur bloc, Argentina, Brazil, Paraguay, and Uruguay, signed a historic, long-awaited trade agreement in Asunción. I don't know how you say that. Sorry if I got that wrong. Paraguay, ending 25 years of negotiations. So this was 25 years in the making. This deal creates one of the world's largest free trade zones, covering 700 million people and eliminating over 90% of tariffs on goods. So the EU has just signed that. Now, I'm going to put it on the end, but I have, of course, spoken at length of how I said what the EU will be rising up. I've got the receipts for this. I did this deep into last year. I think it was around February, March last year, 2025. I spoke about this. Economic impact. The deal aims to boost trade by lowering tariffs on European cars, machinery, pharmaceuticals, saving over $4 billion annually. It secures access for EU critical raw materials essential for green and digital transition. Controversy and compromise. Despite intense opposition from European farmers fearing competition from cheaper South American beef and poultry, the deal includes safeguards and import quotas for sensitive agricultural products. So they're doing it over time. It's nuanced. Significance. The agreement is viewed as a major geopolitical move for the EU, strengthening ties with South America amid global trade tensions and competition from other powers. Next steps. The agreement must still pass through the European Parliament for final approval, which of course it's going to get. So if I stop the share there. So already you can see, look, think of how significant that is. EU is now trading with significant portions of South America, but the tariffs, the blocks between the two are going to drop significantly, in some cases up to 90%. It's going to be phased in over time. But there's more. I'm going to share the next screen. If we look here, going back to the watch history, I'm going to give you an update of more EU news. Look at this.
India and the European Union have agreed a landmark trade agreement after nearly 2 decades of on-off negotiations. The wide-ranging deal will see a number of huge tariff cuts and a joint security partnership. Calling it historic, the EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said the agreement would create a free trade zone of 2 billion people. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi said people across the world will be discussing it as the mother of all deals.
This FTA will boost investment between India and the European Union. It will help forge new innovation partnerships and will strengthen supply chains at a global level, which means that this is not just a trade agreement. It is a new blueprint for shared prosperity.
We're not only making our economy stronger, we're also delivering security for our people in an increasingly insecure world. And today, the world's 2 largest economies and democracies launched their first ever security and defense partnership. This is a landmark departure and a trust-based platform for cooperation on the strategic issues that matter most.
Well, my colleague Arunoday Mukherjee is in Delhi and joins us now. It's certainly...
Well, I think that just kind of illustrates the point, doesn't it? Did you see? It's a new deal for, like she said, in a world of global instability. Who is the one that is destabilizing the global economy the most? Yeah, No prizes for guessing who. Yeah, with all these tariffs on, off, on, off, on, off. Oh, we want to invade. We want to invade Greenland. We're predators. We want to invade Cuba. We want to invade Venezuela. Then we want to invade Mexico. Oh, what we're going to do with Ukraine, Russia. Oh, what does Putin think? Blah, blah, blah. All of it. You don't need me to tell you that. Anyone who's got an ounce of sanity can see how dreadful this has all been. And what it means is, it means that everyone that was previously giving America preferential trade, being the first in the queue, they're going to the last. Everyone's running for the front door and they're like, screw this. This guy's a nutbag. And even when pressed, still dug the heels in. We know that Trump is not the brightest penny when it comes to these kind of things, but the people around him have absolutely no excuse. But they're so riddled with greed and corruption. And all of these politicians that have been bought off by these big companies that all they're doing is thinking of their profits. They would rather the nation commit financial suicide than give up their profits and push their agendas that they want, because they all want to live on Praxis Nation, yeah, in Greenland, or they want to live in Prospera in Honduras, or whatever bullshit they've got cooked up, which is all going to be worth naught if the financial consequences fully play out in the United States. 23 out of the 50 states in America are officially in recession. What are these people doing? They are absolute nutcases. And the astrology is looking ominous. And it's been triggered. And this is why I said, hold on. Yeah, hold on. What else is going on? Let me just make sure that I've not missed anything. So yes, this trade agreement between India and Europe is basically going to be to the benefit of 2 billion people. Why? Because there's like basically 1.6 billion people in India and approximately 400 million people in Europe. When you put all the countries together, fling those two numbers together, you get 2 billion. Yeah, simple math. We also need to remember that India is also part of BRICS. This trade agreement between India and the EU is going to be done primarily without the US dollar. Trade is going to happen in euros and rupees, just like how China or India is buying its oil from Russia, and that's doing that in rupees or rubles. Do you see what's happening here? One of the things I warned about, and this was a few years ago now, and some people were just like, Hoagie, what are you talking about? I said, listen, I said, America as having the global reserve currency, it is under threat. I think it was always something that was going to happen, but what this regime, what the Trump regime is doing is speeding it all up, because America can no longer be a trusted partner. He's there frothing at the mouth, coming out with absolute BS, and the people around him are just disgraceful. And events are moving. Yeah, Japan is going through a difficult time with their currency. It's, what have I put here? So the reverse carry trade is under immense pressure, with Japan bond yields at all time, at the time of writing this, which is today, at 3.875%. They used to be virtually at zero, an increase of 25.5 basis points from what the previous low was. This will directly affect the US dollar because Japanese investors can no longer benefit from the difference of price between the Japan and US treasuries. A US treasury is basically a debt bond. It's an IOU. A country buys US debt, and then the USA pays out a fixed interest rate on that debt. Bonds are not known as high yield, but they're known as very consistent and stable. However, when a country starts to get into trouble, the bond yield begins to increase because that country is seen as less stable, and therefore people want a higher return on their bonds. That's why, for example, with Japanese, previously Japanese kind of financial product bonds, because the interest rate was effectively zero or sometimes even minus, you weren't going to make any money with it, but you could buy things with yen, like American products or bonds, get your whatever 3-4% yield, and it was effectively free money. Now, though, because Japan is in a little bit of dire straits, that yield curve has gone up. So no longer the exchange between the two no longer makes sense. Japanese investors may as well invest in Japanese bonds. But to do that, they need to sell US bonds, which could lead to a massive sell-off of US bonds, and that could flood the market. You know why Trump backed off invading Greenland? Is because Europe started to sell US bonds. The market kind of tanked, went red, and Trump was like, oh, yeah, because that's when him and his friends start losing money. So imagine what's going to happen when the AI bubble bursts. Yeah, it's just, oh, you just can't make this up. I need to talk about Canada as well. Canada, of course, has recently signed a $1 trillion deal with China. Yep, 1 trillion. And they're going to start taking the electric BYD cars. I did a video on this. I can't remember which channel. Maybe in my last one here. I think it was my last video here. That is going to absolutely revolutionize the car market in Canada. These cars can... They've got batteries now that can charge in 5 minutes, and the car can run for hundreds of miles on one charge. Imagine what that's going to do. I've got a friend of mine who is from Hong Kong, someone I played tennis with, and he was telling me, yeah, there's hundreds of electronic EV companies in China. They say they export some of the best of them, which are already cheaper than most Western cars. They said he said the ones in China are even cheaper. He said transport has to keep up with the cheapness of the cars. So he says jumping on a train in China is like 50 cents. This will be a high-speed bullet train, by the way, running on magnets. Yeah. He said people now got the electronic vehicles. They just plug it in, charge that up, and then said if you want a cab, because the cabs have to compete as well. He said the cab is like 1 or 2 pounds for a long journey. China's just running on electric. And I said to him, I knew that this was happening. So I said, that means probably the pollution from the cars and all that stuff has gone down significantly. He's like, yeah, air is clean now. Do you hear that reported on Western media? No. I just checked with him because I knew it was just logic, because China used to suffer a lot from smog and all of that kind of stuff. But if all the cars are electric, goodbye. Yeah, there's still the coal power stations and the nuclear and all that stuff, but it's not nearly the same kind of thing. Mark Carney, after signing his deal with China, is now going to India. Our UK Prime Minister is now going over to China because we've already got a deal with India. I think the UK, and I've said this before, but I need to say it more, is going to rejoin the EU, not the Euro, but the European Economic Zone or whatever. Either way, we're going back in, because why? The whole premise of Brexit, and those that voted for it, the implicit understanding was that America would have the UK's back because of that special relationship. What a load of bunk that has turned out to be. I've always thought it was BS, particularly under this regime. Now, with all of the insults, tariffs, and dreadful treatment at the hands of the Trump regime, why would like I said, every agreement that anyone has with the Trump regime, it may as well be written on toilet paper. It is worthless, because he'll come back in either a year or a few months or a few weeks or even a few days and go, what agreement? That was rubbish. I don't agree with it now. Yeah, capricious. Markets do not like instability. Yeah, instability. What else do I need to show you? So I did that. Yeah, EU signing trade deal with South America. We could talk a bit as well about Japan. I might have to look. I might have to look a bit more into Japan's chart, actually. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give you, just so you know how it's all connected, and then I will. Now, 1 second. Let me just cancel that. Let me just go back. Let's press the back button here. Let's just get another video lined up. Let's look here at where's the Japan one. All right, so I'm going to share this with you. We'll just do a minute or two just to give you the context. All right, let's look at this.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This is an emergency.
Welcome back, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me for this video. Is Japan about to crash global markets? Is Japanese yen carry trade unwind coming? Let's focus on those very important questions in today's video. Experts are hinting at possible currency interventions by the United States and Japanese governments at the moment. There are many speculations now as the yen soared 1.2% against the US dollar overnight on Monday. This followed a sell-off last week, you may recall, which was largely driven by investor fears that the Bank of Japan might intervene to prop up the currency. Here's the shocking statement that was made by the CEO of the Vera Group, Nigel Green. I thought this statement was very, very good. It is brief and it is so on point. Take a look. Japan has been the world's financial shock absorber for a generation, and that role has abruptly ended. It's over, he says. The repricing of Japanese debt is a systemic event, and this is not a local story, and investors need to treat it as such. Last week, I discussed the most recent Japanese government bond sell-off. That video did really well. It has close to 300,000 views by now, and there were many comments and many questions that I wanted to take the time to address in today's video, to dive a bit deeper into this topic. It is a very important one, especially as Japan's elections are just around the corner, February the 8th, and the Bank of Japan is certainly going to move ahead to address a variety of issues that Japan is facing right now. For a very long time, Japanese bond market has been a very stable, quite boring, non-eventful place with Japanese government bonds barely moving and yields actually sitting near zero for a while. Volatility was, of course, virtually non-existent there, and investors treated Japan as a place that you could always rely on for stability and for cheap funding. As the events of the past several months and especially several weeks show us, that's over, that's in the past, and what's replacing that is far more dangerous than most people realize. All
right, so without kind of sharing you the whole video, so the whole point is that global finance, trade agreements, treaties, banking, rules, regulations, everything is changing. And that new moon, remember, new moon is when the moon is darkest, when the sun and the moon together. It means new seeds are being planted. But do you see all those other planets around? It means the new global system is emerging. A new global world order is emerging, as Mark Carney says. But I think the thing that was the surprising thing is that America is not being seen as part of that change. A lot of people going, unreliable partner. You can't trade with someone who's going to is threatening to invade your country. The fact that Trump was coming out with wanting to invade Greenland, which is Denmark, a part of Denmark, which is a NATO country, And when pushed and prodded on this, because people were like, are you sure? And they're like, we're predators, we're predators. Yeah, Stephen Miller, that absolute nutcase, psychopath, Goebbels reincarnation. We're predators and we deserve to take that land or what have you. And that was the hard red line. Everyone was like, no, you will not do that. Yeah, and the orange bitch had to back down. I cannot overstate the levels of utter hubris, folly, stupidity, idiocy, and narcissistic recklessness of these absolute plebs that are part of this regime and the damage they are doing to the United States, which is now irreversible. Makes me so cross because it's so unnecessary and it's also self-inflicted and silly, frankly silly, along with the dark, sinister rubbish that is being foisted upon the American people on the streets with ICE and all of the rest of it. So what to do, yeah, in the closing 5 minutes? One of the most important things that if you do live in the United States, groups, you need to make groups together. You need to have provisions put to one side. You don't have to panic, but you certainly need to have some like long-lasting food products. Everyone talks about rice and beans, but they talk about rice and beans for a reason, because when you combine rice with, I don't know, some kind of type of bean or lentils, it kind of, they call it a complete protein. It's not technically quite, but it's good as a base. And with that, of course, you can have vegetables and this, that, and the other. Tinned goods. Yeah, get your tinned goods. If you've got pets, make sure that you got plenty of pet food in, provisions. Of course, the obvious things is to reduce your expenditure. Yeah, reduce your expenditure in terms of trying to protect your finances and stuff. I would say if you can now, of course, I am not a financial advisor. And please be aware that the value of your stocks can go down as well as up. Yeah, I'm not a financial advisor, but my tips would be metals, precious metals. Gold is an obvious one. This is why the price of gold is now over $5,000 per ounce. You know, I kind of have to pat myself a little bit on the back because I bought some of my gold years ago. I wish I bought a lot more actually, but anyway, I was focusing on other stuff. But you know, those gold coins or whatever that I bought years ago have pretty much quadrupled in value. I bought quite a bit of silver a little while ago when it was tuppence halfpenny, and the silver is starting to go through the roof. I might have to buy a bit more of that. What they do is they preserve your wealth when commodities and stuff are going down. If you can deleverage certain positions in your portfolio in terms of 401k and this, that, and the other, that might be something worth looking at, because everyone's 401k is connected to the US stock market. But the International Monetary Fund is not feeling so hot about the American dollar right now. And in fact, let me just do one last share so you can see this. You know, this isn't hyperbole. This is just real life. It's just real life. Here, IMF prepares for global run on US dollar. The EU should issue more common debt to provide investors with an alternative safe asset to gold and US treasuries, the fund managing director said. Yeah, the International Monetary Fund is preparing for the possibility of a rapid sell-off of US dollar denominated assets, its managing director, Kristalina Georgieva, said on Monday. At the fund, one muscle that we are building is our ability to hypothetically present scenarios of unthinkable events and then figure out what to do, she said. Yeah, the event hosted by, was that Bruegel, a Brussels-based think tank. Yeah, asked whether scenarios include potential run on dollar assets. Georgieva, I think that's how you say it, said the fund runs all kinds of scenarios and that it was examining the issue as part of its ongoing analysis. Her comments come as Donald Trump's sweeping tariffs, do you remember them, and attacks on the Federal Reserve's independence. Let's not forget, there's that. Remember, he's launched a legal investigation into the guy who is head of the Federal Reserve. Like, really? Independence and rule of law have sparked deep investor unease about the status of the dollar, which has dominated global finance since the end of the Second World War. Yeah, the big agreement. The greenback's value has fallen more than 9% against a basket of other currencies since Trump's return to the White House in January 2025. The dollar's decline against the euro has been even steeper at just under 12%. Fears about the greenback's continued status as a safe haven have also caused investors to pile into gold, with the price of bullion reaching a record high of $5,100 per troy ounce on Monday. Yeah. Do you see why I'm saying that this is urgent? This is a very important time to get together, create community. This is why on my website, we're having these group chats. Yeah, it's called Coffee with Hoagie. It only costs the price of a coffee. It's about $4 something, £3.75 in UK. And I did the first one on Sunday just gone. It was a great success. So that was yesterday. It gave a great opportunity for people to come together, share advice, let off steam. And I want to help Americans in particular. Well, anyone can join if they want, Europe or where have you. But it's going to start getting dicey, guys. Yeah. Because of the absolute bonkers cray-cray, yeah? Let me just plug in my thingamabob here. That has been foisted upon the American people, particularly those that are Magatonians and voted this way as well, despite all the warnings. Remember Rahu? Yeah? Rahu Dasha. Some people don't listen. And now we're dealing with the consequences of this. The reason why I'm saying that this is so grave is because it's several things happening at once. Not only is Canada, one of America's largest trade partners, signed a massive deal with China, which is going to revolutionize their car industry, when most of the cars manufactured in the United States are sold in Canada. Europe, who Trump has tariffed and says wants to fling on 25% tariffs because it won't let him have Greenland, yeah, has signed these big deals with South America, and that massive deal ratified today with India. So Europe is like, bye. Canada's like, bye. See ya. Who is America going to trade with at this point when he's flinging tariffs right, left, and center and trying to terrorize people at home? And then they're thinking, all of these billionaires that support this think they're going to go and live on these fantasy islands. Yeah, these fantasia spaces in Greenland, once they thought that Trump would basically steal it for them. While at the same time, there is a massive AI bubble. It's just astonishing. I learned recently that Facebook has had to borrow, I think it's something like $900 billion to basically keep itself afloat, which means they've run out of money because Meta, of course, which, you know, Mark Zuckerberg, yeah, has basically just, there's a word I want to use, but just spaffed, you know, a lot of money up the wall, doing the Meta stuff, trying to give people virtual reality goggles that no one said they wanted, to try and absorb us into this ever more crazy, detached world. That means they're not making enough money from the advertising because they've wasted so much trying to invest into all of this AI, which is a giant bubble. ChatGPT is running out of money. They're trying to wring more money out of the investors, and the investors are starting to say no. So now they're going to start trying to put adverts, yeah, adverts on it. I did a video on that as well. So what worries me is that because so many people's 401ks are invested in the bloody stock market, and yeah, it's record highs, but imagine when the crash comes. So this is about diversifying, deleveraging where you can, putting your money into assets, into things like metal, you know, gold, silver, a portion of it, but also as well having food, trying to have like a good storage, a few months of food, of non-perishables that will last. I know that sounds a bit dramatic for me to be saying this, but look at all of the factors that are coming together, and that Rahu Ketu dasha is only a few weeks away, and we're already seeing the direction of travel, aren't we, with all of the examples that I showed you. You can't control what happens to Japan or other countries or what trade agreements that they make. Not everyone can just flee the United States. A lot of people have been doing so. So this is about community, 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 community. Build community with like-minded people. Talk to your neighbors if you can. Get a little plan together for food sharing pantry, or buying things in bulk. Doing kind of like, what's it, crock pot, cook shares, spreading resources, checking your finances, making sure that you are as deleveraged from debt as possible. There's another one. The value of the dollar obviously is going down, and it would only go down more. So try to make sure that if you are holding cash, try and hold it in other currencies. You know, the euro might be a good idea. Swiss francs, of course, is a classic one. But the euro might be a good idea. The euro is only going to strengthen with time, and it is likely, it's the one that's most likely to become the new global reserve currency if that should happen. That, of course, you've also got the unit, which is, of course, is the BRICS currency, which is what I've been talking about. But the BRICS currency is backed by 40% gold and then 60% other basket of currencies anyway. So the euro and everyone can mingle in with that. And of course, the EU has just signed a massive deal with India, and India is one of the main players in BRICS anyway. And UK has also signed a deal with India as well. So we're in BRICS via the back door. What the Trump regime has done has caused immense offense to the rest of the world. Immense. You guys will know this, but some of you, for you guys, this may be news, depending on where you get your news from. But as you saw, I've shared my sources there. This is no joke. This is a bit of an emergency, and you need to prepare. Doesn't mean the dollar's going to crash overnight. No, not necessarily. But let me tell you, with these things, when these things happen, they happen at pace. Always a lot faster. Why else is the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, gaming out the scenario for the collapse of the dollar? Yeah, because of all these things I've told you. I know it's a bit scary, but the best thing to do is to be prepared. I know many of you have been watching my channel, and I've been talking about this for ages anyway, and many of you are actually prepared. Think of things as well that are useful to barter and exchange. People love little bottles of alcohol, packets of cigarettes, stuff like that. We're talking old school, condoms even, yeah? Very, very useful. You can package up all sorts of things, as well as for its obvious use as well. Even things like plasters, detergent, yeah? Things that can clean wounds or cuts or bruises, or, you know, stuff like that. Even things like needle and thread, yeah, for sewing, stitching, repairing things. The obvious one as well is growing your own food where possible. Talking a lot with local markets, farmers markets, trying to get a good deal, get a good relationship going with the farmer. Maybe you've got a neighbor who's got some chickens. If you can, if you have a bit of space, one of the best things you could do is get yourself some chickens, because they will lay eggs in the summer months. You know, I don't think they lay in the winter, but if you get yourself 6 chickens, you know, or even 3, yeah, 3 or 4 chickens, you know, I don't know how many foxes you have in the United States, but you know, you get them a coop and this, that, and the other. Chickens lay every day 1 to 2 eggs per chicken. That is a wonderful source of protein. You know, and then if you've got a bit of veg going, say like you got some zucchini going, some butternut squash, zucchini plus butternut squash plus some rice and some beans and eggs. Ooh, it's looking pretty good, isn't it? That is a pretty good source of food that you've got there. And it might seem extreme for me to say this, but if we think of all of the factors that are piling in all at once, for me, the reason why I'm saying that this is urgent is because of that financial news that has come through. Because the world is officially turning away from America because of everything that's been done, because of what the Trump regime has done, let alone all the other BS and the crazy that is going on within the country. And the moves that America is doing, the whole world is watching. You know, this kind of tepid, limp-wristed pushback from the Democrats, apart from, you know, Bernie Sanders and AOC and one or two others. The rest is they're complicit. 7 of them voted to keep funding ICE, which is, we're talking like they want to increase, and they also want to increase, Trump wants to increase the war budget, as it were, to 1.5 trillion. This is absolutely ridiculous, while the rest of the world is putting back and signing trade agreements left, right, and center with everyone else except the United States. This can only go one way. So I know what I'm saying to you is a bit bleak and it is a bit scary, but I have to just share with you what's really going on, particularly with this AI bubble as well, which isn't going to last forever. Google's going to do fine. ChatGPT, I'm not so sure. And after that, it is a cascading effect. So those are those things. So like I said, deleverage where you can within reason. Trying to minimize any debts that you have, or get that debt restructured. Make sure that you've got like non-perishable goods, big bags of rice, beans, tinned goods, and those kind of things. Stock up as well on things like lighters, small little packets of booze, yeah, things that can be used for exchange, cigarettes, things like condoms. Like I said, you don't have to use them. They're just useful things for like carrying things, water, medicines, what have you. Even get things like aspirin, you know, painkillers, things that people need, toothpaste, toothbrushes, yeah, stuff that people need, you know, if things all go absolutely kind of like pear-shaped. Deleverage a bit. If you've got some spare cash, maybe kind of instead of holding your money in dollars, maybe you start changing some of that into euros. Yeah, it's going to keep its value a lot better. As you can see, the dollar has dropped against the euro by over 12%. Yeah, because maybe the euro is going to become the new global reserve currency in the not too distant future. It's the one that's best positioned, and they've already been talking about it. Yeah. Make sure that your health is good. Minimize sugary foods, junk food, stuff like that. Make sure that you've got enough food, not only for yourself, but also your pets, if you have them as well. Think of different ways as well of like heating your apartment and stuff. If there's like power cuts, maybe this might be a very good time to get a generator if you can afford one, just to have it in case of backup. Yeah. Look how this regime is behaving. They're imploding, and it's just ridiculous. And as you know, I've said, I think that Trump is going to scarper, you know, kind of make an escape for it internationally anyway, particularly when Jupiter becomes exalted in sidereal Cancer from the 1st of June. And I said, when Jupiter was exalted, this was also the time of the French Revolution. And I said, revolutionary energy is there as well. Look at all of the things that are happening. You could say there's revolution already, just in light of what is happening with ICE and all of that rubbish. So these are tumultuous times, and I know what I've said is a bit scary, but the only antidote, the true antidote, is community, community, community. Like-minded people, talking with your neighbors, independent food suppliers, stocking up a bit, deleveraging here and there. Being prepared, you know, like having just something where you can last for about 3 months or so. It doesn't mean it's going to happen overnight, but when these things change, they do change very rapidly, and it's better to be, you know, it's better to be in advance. Look here, I don't have much of it, and I wish I kind of bought probably a little bit more, you know, in the past. Yeah, it's still probably more than the average person. Yeah, yeah. Gold coins. Yeah, got these I bought years ago. I'm talking like back in 2022. Yeah, little gold coin. Now, am I going to be spending this? Look, this thing. What is that? Is that an ounce? I don't even know if it's an ounce. I don't know. I can't even remember if it is that an ounce. Oh no, it's only 10 grams. So it's only 10 grams. But that, since I bought it, which is a few months ago, it's effectively doubled in price. Am I going to be selling it? No. Like, gold traditionally is a protector of your wealth. It is the heart of a star. It is the sun. Yeah. Silver. I've got my silver on the back. That's gone up a lot. In fact, the wiser thing for me probably would be to buy a bit more silver. Am I worried about the UK economy crashing? No, but it's just good to have this stuff. This is what you have it for in times of need. So I know what I'm sharing is a little bit scary, but you can understand why I'm talking as well about this stuff, because the astrology doesn't lie. I've been warning people about this. I said, look, the Rahu Ketu Dasha, we need to watch out for that. Anyway, I know that was a bit much, but I will leave it there for now. Please remember to like and subscribe. Leave some comments below. Let me know what your thoughts are and what your strategies are going forward. But I will leave it there. Big love. And of course, please share this video as well. Like, hype, subscribe, all of that jazz. All right, big love. Bye-bye for now. Cheers.